Hello artists, in this video we're going to learn some techniques that will help us draw some eyes. Go gather your supplies that you would like to use and meet me back here. When getting started with drawing facial features, it's important to know that there are spacing techniques that you need to know. So for your eyes, I like to use a ruler to help me space everything out. And if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. You can use a second piece of paper and measure things out once you've drawn your eye, and I can show you how to do that. But if you do have a ruler with you right now, I am going to use 4 through 7, and that's going to be 3 inches. I'm going to have my eyes be 1 inch long, and then the space in between my eyes is also going to be 1 inch. So in between your eyes, at the bridge of your nose, at the top, is the same exact width as your eyes. So I'm going to make myself a little line here from 4 to 7 and make myself a little dot at 5 and 6, and why not at 4 and 7. So here I'm going to take my ruler away, and I've got a nice line in 1 inch spaces. So now I know how wide my eyes are going to be. You can also use this line as like the middle of your eye, if that helps with adding a guide. Okay, so first thing, I like to start by adding the top of the eyelid. Okay, and the shape of the eye is kind of like a football. So you can start on either corner, and I take it kind of in a couple of different lines, and I go over them a few times until I get the top shape that I want. You want it to curve like the top of a football. Okay? And it's always best to try and draw as light as you can. I'm drawing a little bit darker, that way it shows up better on the video. But the lighter you draw, the easier it is to erase. So I feel like I'm getting that shape down, and I might erase just a little bit, clean it up. There we go. So I have the top of my football shape. Next, let's add the bottom. Now the bottom is not going to be as curved or as tall as the top eyelid. So the bottom eyelid is going to stay a little closer to that line that I added. And it will curve down a little bit, just not as much as the top. So here we have a little football shape, or like an almond. You can kind of play around if you want it to be a little taller on top, a little lower on the bottom. All right, next we need to add the iris, which is the part of the eye that holds color. Like if your eye is brown, blue, green, hazel, that's called the iris, and that's the bigger circle in your eye. Now, with this, the iris most of the time touches the top eyelid, and then there's a space between it and the bottom eyelid. So when drawing a circle, just take your time, and if it helps, you can draw the letter C and then a backward C to help you finish that circle. But I always say go over and over until you start getting the circle shape that you like. Again, draw lightly and it will be easier to erase. So here we have the start of our eye. So we have our top and bottom eyelid and our iris. Our next step is to add the tear duct that's on the inside of the eye. And I just like to add a little backwards C or a sideways U for the tear duct. And there we go, we have our tear duct. Added to our eye. And it doesn't have to stick out that much. I might have made that a little too big. So again, this is all about proportions and what you feel is right for the size eye that you are starting with, okay? So there is our tear duct. We have our iris. And we have our top and bottom lid. Awesome. The next part is adding the crease for our top eyelid. So we have extra skin on the top of our eyes so we can close our eyelids. And to create that, we're going to do the same arch that we did for our top eyelid. We're just going to give it some space in between. And you don't have to make it the entire length. I give myself some space from the corner and I just follow the same curve as my top eyelid. That might be a little too far. Again, it's always guess and check. And to remember to draw lightly so that way you can erase and not be bothered by having lines that won't go away because you drew a little too dark. So I'm drawing pretty dark, again, so that way it's easier for you to see. Okay, so here we have our bottom eyelid, our top eyelid, our iris, and our top line that helps us make the crease for our top eyelid. All right, the next part is adding extra details. So in the corner, we have our tear duct on the inside, but we also have some extra skin here on the outside corner of our eye. And I just use a little curved smile line for that. You can even kind of add one here for your tear duct. And here we go. Next, let's add some eyelashes. Now, everybody has eyelashes. Some are just longer than others. But when we're drawing eyelashes, we want to be careful to not give too many. You don't want them all to be too dark or too light. We want a little bit of both. And eyelashes start from the inside and they're smaller. So my first one, I'm gonna have it go just a little over that top crease for the eyelid. And I might draw like some lighter ones, but you do want them to curve. So think of a slight smile line. And as we get further away from the inside of the eye, the eyelashes do get longer. And you can make some a little darker. You could add some in between that are lighter. But remember, we don't want to add too many. This is the part where you can kind of play around, practice curving your lines a little bit. might have added a little too many, but that's okay. There are eyelashes on the bottom, but they are much smaller. And we definitely don't want to add too many. Just a few kind of on the outside corner. So here we have some of our details. We have our eyelashes. And now we are ready to work on adding details for the iris in our pupil. Now for your pupil, you're gonna add a second circle inside. So you can start with the letter C and a backward C to help you, and then you can continue going over your circle until it's this shape that you want. And you don't want to make your pupil too big, but it is also black. This is also where you want to think, do you want to add some highlights, right? Do you want to give some light to your eye? And a highlight is where the light, like an outside light source, like a lamp or overhead light, is hitting your eye. And your iris is not all one color. So what I like to do is just go around a little darker all the way around, just little lines around, and then a little lighter on the inside. But for a highlight, you need to leave that area completely white and then make your pupil darker. All right. And here you can add a little bit of shading to your tear duct. And there you have the basics of drawing your eye. Now to draw your second eye, there is a trick. What I would do is draw yourself a couple of more guides. So here, this is about as far as we went down for our bottom eyelid. I would give yourself a little line underneath that last inch mark that we added. And then I would go to the top of your eyelid and do the same. This will help you keep a lot of the same proportions for when you're ready to start your second eye. So now you know that that's as tall as you can go for your top eyelid, and this is as low as you can go for your bottom eyelid. And that way you're keeping things pretty much the same, because it gets a little difficult to do this without extra help. Now, if you don't have a ruler, but you do have an extra piece of paper, I suggest that you go ahead and draw your eye completely. And then from there, pick a edge of your paper, maybe one that's like a little bit more clean, and make yourself some marks. So here is basically the end of my eye. So I'm gonna add a mark there, and I'm going to add a mark here. And remember, you need the same space in between your eyes. So you're gonna give yourself space here, and that's where you can mark on your paper. I would try to like put it somewhere in the middle if you can. And then just move it over to get the end. And then you'll have the same spacing. And then you can do the same. So up here, you can go to the top of the lid and then draw your line, right? And then you can go to the bottom. So you don't have to have a ruler, but an extra piece of paper will help, all right? And follow those same steps in drawing your second eye. All right, have fun.